When things don't work out as we'd planned, sometimes there's a temptation to push harder, to try and force a particular outcome. Doing the same thing over and over again, even if we push really hard, and expecting something different to happen just isn't healthy. Maybe we have everything we need for happiness, but we just have to use what we've been given in different ways. This recipe uses everyday ingredients, but combines them in surprising and satisfying ways. Instead of striving to be something we're not, and rather than trying to bend the world to our wills, let's step back and try something new with what God provides. I'm Jenny Randolph. Welcome to This Day. We are getting ready for Thanksgiving around here, and if you want a showstopper appetizer, you know, right before you're getting ready to serve the big meal and everybody's super hungry because they waited all day to eat, this is going to be the one for you. It is a butternut squash and pear bruschetta. And we're gonna use some fresh sage today, some garlic. We're gonna roast these vegetables up, and it is gonna be such a perfect addition to your Thanksgiving meal. I've already preheated the oven to 425 degrees. I have also gone ahead and prepped my butternut squash. I've chopped it into bite-sized bits because this is a bruschetta and you're gonna need to be able to have a bite of it and not have it fall off your bread. So that's what you wanna do. Now, preparing a butternut squash is a little bit labor intensive. It's got a tough skin on the outside, but you can always do it a couple of days in advance and stick it in the fridge. You can also buy it already prepared. A lot of grocery stores will have a container that is already chopped up for you. So if you want a time saver, if you don't have time to do that, or your knife skills aren't so good, just go ahead and get it already chopped up for you in the grocery store. This is about 2 cups. Now to this, we are gonna go ahead and add about a cup of pears, and that's gonna end up being maybe 1 to 2 of these pears, and we're gonna just go ahead and give that a quick chop. Remember, for the pears, we also want bite-sized pieces. It looks like that pear gave us exactly about a cup or so, so I'm just gonna stay with that 1 pear. It was big enough to get us where we needed to go. So now we want to add seasonings to this. We want to season it right. So I'm going to add probably about, a half a teaspoon of salt to this, and about a half a teaspoon or so of pepper. We also want to add 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice and a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. Give that a good stir and make sure that all your pieces are coated. Oh, it smells good. I think I could use just a little bit more salt, but as with anything, as you're going and as you're cooking, especially with this kind of savory stuff and the roasted stuff, you know, do it to your taste. Salt it as much as you want, leave the pepper out if you want to, but I like to make sure that every stage is really, really seasoned. So I have already prepared a sheet pan, and I put some aluminum foil on that, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I want to make sure that I don't have to scrub this pan later. The pears and the butternut squash have a really high sugar content and a tendency to caramelize and all of that, and that way you're going to save yourself the chore of scraping and cleaning that pan. Remember that this is for Thanksgiving. You don't want to be in the kitchen for that long. Yeah, everybody's got to be in the kitchen, but let's try to keep the scrubbing of pots and pans and sheets to a minimum. We're also going to use the same pan for when we toast our bread. So it's gonna be like kind of utilitarian today. We're gonna put that bread back on and toast it with some olive oil later on. So prepare your pan with some aluminum foil and go ahead and spread them out evenly all over your sheet pan. And get all of that good olive oil and seasoning and salt and pepper. Now it's gonna cook a lot more even if you spread it out and give these little bits some room to cook and to brown and to just be happy. Now it's into the oven for them to roast for 15 minutes. And again, our oven is at 425 degrees. So while our pears and butternut squash are roasting, we're going to be sauteing up some garlic and sage and walnuts together. And that just adds the perfect amount to this really, really good bite when we have it on the bruschetta. So we're gonna go ahead and chop up the sage into very thin bits. So I just sort of rolled the sage. You can slice through it a little bit more. These are kind of big leaves, and just give it a little bit of a chop. To a small pan, we want to add just a bit of olive oil. We're going to add the sage that we chopped, minced garlic. We want to let this saute until our garlic is a little bit brown and our sage is nice and crispy. To our garlic and sage, we want to add a half a cup of chopped walnuts. It smells so good in here. I wish you all could smell this with the nuttiness of the walnuts and the fresh sage and the garlic. Oh my goodness, it is amazing. These smell amazing, and you can kind of tell when they're totally cooked. If you can take your finger and mush them down a little bit, and you just don't want any hard pieces, again, because this is gonna be on a piece of bread and you're gonna take a bite. So just make sure, if you're not sure if they're cooked all the way through, just give it a quick once over and you'll be able to tell. But you can see the caramelization on some of them, and they just are absolutely beautiful. Take all of this goodness and put it back into a bowl. These really do come together very quickly. And like I said before, they are an absolute showstopper. People will think that you slaved for weeks over these. Now, to our roasted fruits and veggies, we want to add our mixture of walnuts, garlic, and sage. So this is the part where you want to taste it for seasoning. It has just the right amount of saltiness, so we don't need to add any more salt. I do think I'm going to add a tad more pepper because I want that spice to come through, but just a pinch, not too much. And like I said before, taste it, adjust the seasonings to your likings. But the pumpkin pie spice in here, it's not too overpowering. You get a little bit of the cinnamon, a little bit of the nutmeg, and the allspice. It really is quite lovely. All right, so back to this pan. You remember that we covered it in aluminum foil. And now all we have to do is remove the foil, and we can use this pan again to toast our bread. So take your pre-sliced bread and lay it out. We're gonna brush it with a little bit of olive oil. Now it's back into the oven for about 5 minutes or so, but make sure that you watch it because this bread can go from toasted to burnt very, very quickly. So keep an eye on it, stick it back into the oven, like I said, about 5 minutes or so. Now we're gonna work on our spread, and this is simply a ricotta. We're just going to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. So about 1/4 teaspoon of salt or so. This is 1 cup of ricotta. Now, if you wanted to make this vegan, you could use cashew cheese, or you could use any kind of vegan cheese that you want. Just make sure that it's spreadable. Now that our bread is all toasted, it's time to assemble, and it's also really time to eat. So take a piece of your toasted bread, spread a bit of the ricotta, and top it with our beautiful squash and pear mixture. I like to make sure that each piece has a bite of everything. So enough sage and enough of the walnuts, a good dose of that garlic. Just eyeball it. When people bite into it, you want them to have the perfect bite. These are good warm, but they're also excellent at room temperature. Let's finish them off with a balsamic glaze reduction, just to make it extra fancy. So there we are, we have our beautiful finished product, and I hope that you just love these as much as I do. Again, I wish that you could smell them. They're absolutely divine, and I cannot wait to dig right into them. If there's a challenge in your life that seems really complicated, remember to go back, simplify, Use what God has given you already. Use what's right in front of you. And I bet that you'll find interesting and new ways to use those things that you already have. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed, hit that notification bell, and that way you'll get notified every time I put out a new video. The full recipe is listed in the description box below, also along with some of my last year's Thanksgiving recipes, so that if you're looking for a full Thanksgiving feast, you're gonna be able to have it this year. So you can make it vegetarian and vegan, and you don't need turkey to have an amazing holiday. Thanks for stopping by. God bless.